We are families, we are caregivers, we are parents to children with disabilities and medical complexities. We are rarely familiar. We get together to learn, to relate, and to laugh a lot while we share each other's unique family experiences of raising the rarest of the rare. Our goal is to unite, inspire, educate, and empower people living a rarely familiar life. And we're so glad you're here. Hi, welcome to Rarely Familiar. This is Haley, and I'm here with my friends Trum and Jen, where we dig into the realities of raising the rarest of the rare. Today, we're going to get familiar with family engagement in research. But before that, as we always do, let's check in. Let's see what's been going on the last couple of weeks. Trum is here with us back again today. Hi, Trum.
Hi.
Hi, Trum. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks.
The fluidity of our group is interesting. I love it. I love that I was gone for a while and now Trum's been gone for a while and now we're all back together. So how are you guys doing? What is new?
We just got over the sick. The Friday that he came home from school and spring break started is when he got sick. So we spent the entire week sick. So that was a bummer. And it went through Felix, me, then Nikki got it, then Tim got it. Trum, you same, right?
Yeah, so we did go to Cincinnati where Sean's mom is still there. So we went to go visit her. But thankfully, we caught it at the end of the trip. So on the day we drove back is when I started to get symptoms. I was like, thank goodness I could get home and be in my bed. And it's just a cough, but it's like congestion cough. And it's never good to feel not good when you're not at home. So it's nice to be back.
Did you come back a little early too?
No, we broke up the drive because it's like 10 and a half, 11, depending on traffic. But we broke up the drive going down. But we did do it in one straight shot coming home.
Were there any rest stops with adult changing tables on the way?
None. And so there is on the Changing Spaces campaign map, there are some listed, but some of them were out of the way.
Yeah.
But in Wisconsin, they had some new ones. And so they have at least family companion care bathrooms. And we, believe it or not, brought our own portable massage table and we did use it in the family companion care bathroom. And that's nice on our backs. It's a soft bed for her to lay on and stretch out. Yeah, but it's nice and light. Thankfully, it's Sean and I. So with one person, I think it would be really difficult, but it was a nice option to have. And we stopped at a couple visitor centers where they're a little bit bigger too. When they didn't have a family companion bathroom, I went into the women's, put up the table. Sean stayed outside, and then I would wheel her in.
And
it is better.
You did that in like the main. You did that in the main part of the bathroom.
Yeah, because thankfully it was quiet time, and even if there were a lot of women coming in, I think if their maternal senses kick in, and I've had people offer help before. It is what it is.
Well, I'm glad you were troubleshooting so well.
Jen, what did you do for spring break?
I did nothing for spring break, but my good news is that we had our final appointment with Julian's neurosurgeon who performed the craniectomy for Julian back in November. Listeners may not know this, but Julian spent almost 3 months in Children's Hospital in Minneapolis, as well as Gillette Children's Hospital in St. Paul this winter from an emergency craniectomy. And so we've been meeting with the neurosurgeon, Dr. Patrick Finley O'Brien, who is amazing. And he gave us final clearance yesterday that Julian is good. He does not need to see him again, other than if we want to see him. So really good news. So anyways, he said, get rid of your trampoline. So I was just in my garage looking for my little hook because I had 2 friends offer to come and help me dismantle the trampoline that I bought him last year. So that's kind of disappointing, but understanding because Dr. O'Brien said ATVs, snowmobiles, and trampolines are the 3 most dangerous activities for young people. So not a hard sell for me to get rid of it. Not a big deal. So if anyone wants a trampoline, let me know. But that was my day. So
that's great news. So glad to hear that Julian has recovered from the craniectomy. What a wild ride you've been on. We've all got another spring break in the books, and it's time to move on. Speaking of moving on, let's go ahead and introduce Rhonda Cady and learn about family engagement in research. So Rhonda and I met in yoga class. She was first my student, but now I am very much hers. While we both work at Gillette Children's, I want to point out that these are our own points of view. We are not speaking on behalf of Gillette. We are just Haley and Rhonda today. But a little backstory on how Rhonda and I both met. Trum had told me about this job at Gillette. I don't know why she was on the Gillette website looking for stuff. She's a little resource guru. But she knew that I had always wanted to work at Gillette. I believed in their mission. Felix had been a patient there for several years. I totally drank the Gillette Kool-Aid a long time ago. And she saw this job that she said, oh my gosh, this would be perfect for you. It was about recruiting families for research. I hadn't updated my resume in 7 years. I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't know what to put on a resume anymore. And so I put CEO of Team Felix. It turns out, in a crazy set of circumstances, that Rhonda was actually hiring for the position that Trump had found me. And pretty much the rest is history. She has been my mentor for the last 18 months, has gone above and beyond to help me thrive in an entirely new career. Rhonda has credentials, an amazing set of degrees. She has a background in nursing. She has her PhD. I think her dissertation was actually on telehealth and the value of video interfacing. Anyway, she's always been ahead of her time. She has authored numerous manuscripts. She's been in prestigious publications, presented at some of the top medical conferences in the world, and just has a long set of awards behind her name. But beyond that, Rhonda is humble and dedicated and a relentless advocate of people with disability and medical complexity. I am honored to call her my friend and mentor. Welcome, Rhonda. I am so honored for you to join us today.
I have to say, so when I first met Haley, like she said, myself and one or two friends, we showed up for this new yoga class. And we were sitting in the front row, yabbing amongst ourselves. And Haley came over and introduced herself. So we all kind of said where we were from. And then maybe a month or so after that, Haley remembered that I worked at Gillette. She starts explaining about this position. All of a sudden, the light bulb goes off. That, oh my gosh, that's what I was hiring for. I feel like we were fated. Yes.
You're
Yeah.
totally, I love that. I love that
Yeah.
when things are supposed to happen, they just align like that, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
The weird coincidences that made this happen, like Trum was looking, what were you even doing on the Gillette website looking for jobs?
I'm always looking for things. Always.
Rhonda, I love your backdrop. I love there's a bike. We do ask our guest if they have any fun facts to share. And obviously your credentials are very impressive. So what about you do we want to know, or would you like to share with our listeners?
Certainly. Well, I love riding my bike. That is my thing that I do with my friends, my husband. But two fun facts. First of all, Haley mentioned that my first career was a registered nurse. I am a registered nurse who faints at the sight of blood.
Oh,
Hence, that is why I'm no longer. It was a very short career. But the better fun fact, when I was probably 10 years old, I was the champion speed skater at the Brookfield, Wisconsin speed skating tournament. They flood the parking lot at a park and you skate around. And the only reason I won first place is because my best friend, who was a better skater than I was, she fell. And so
okay.
Exactly, I got a trophy. And so I was going to be an Olympic speed skater. So Milwaukee had one of the first Olympic size ice ovals.
Mm.
And so when I am now 10 years old, announced this to my dad, he takes me to that rink and says, okay, start skating. I'm like, I have to skate that whole distance? Well, needless to say, the practicality of that dream didn't go very far.
That's fun. Are you still skating then into adulthood?
Not really.
No.
No.
That was your big moment.
She uses those strong legs to bike now.
Exactly. Now it's my bike. Yeah. Yeah.
Rhonda, you should change it to Rhonda, aka the female Apollo Ono. Isn't he the gold Olympic US
Oh, yeah.
speed skater?
It's amazing. Yes. Yes.
See, I pull out these sporting notes every now and then, and my husband's like, please never talk sports, because I just randomly make up things sometimes. So I pulled that one out of nowhere.
So tell me, what is your tie-in with the disability community?
I've been thinking about this, and it hit me today in spin class. So I'm pretty much deaf, but my hearing loss started in my late 20s. So I grew up hearing, but eventually lost it. I didn't realize how hard it was until I took a job with a group at the University of Minnesota, and they were looking for somebody with a computer background. But they were evaluating a new care coordination program for adults with physical disabilities. And the only reason I was interested because they wanted somebody with data management skills. Well, everybody that worked in that team had some type of physical disability. So I worked with this amazing guy who had spinal cord injury in a wheelchair, another guy with cerebral palsy. And I'm like, these are my people. I just felt like I was in the right place. And so that's kind of my tie-in. So after that job, then I went to work for a pediatrician at the U who was ahead of her time. She basically had a complex care clinic. She was a lot like Dr. Gagnon. Her name was Ann Kelly. And I always thought that that was when I first had that connection, but really it was way before that.
So did you know that you wanted to be a research scientist?
Not until I started working on that research project evaluating the program for adults with disabilities. And that's when it hit me. I really like this research stuff. I really thought I wanted to teach, that the research stuff would be kind of boring, but that's what I really liked.
I think part of the data gathering takes on so many different forms that you don't realize. I never thought I would have worked in research.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I just actually read this morning that only 25% of people, their first jobs right into the career world, are in alignment with their major, that the major does not necessarily lead you to the career that is the major, right? So only 25%. So I have a senior right now in high school, and he's trying to figure out what his major will be in college. And it kind of takes a little pressure off to say, you know what, the experiences we have through life are going to maybe lead us a little bit too in those directions. So our topic, family engagement and research, is a new concept to me. We go by FER, is that correct? The acronym FER. And could you just give us a backstory? What is it exactly? Because I can deduce by what the name is, but I would love to learn more about what it is from your standpoint.
So Jen, kind of like my 30-second spiel. So when Procter & Gamble wants to develop a new product, let's say a new detergent, dish detergent, who do they go to for ideas? The consumers, people that use dish detergent. Think of any product or service that's out there in the world. What informs that product or service are the people that actually use it. Healthcare is probably the service that's out there where that doesn't happen. And so family engagement in research, and research is just another level higher that doesn't use the people, the consumers, to inform what they're doing. So it's really asking our consumers, so the people with the condition. I want to research care coordination. So I need to talk to families that receive care coordination or would like to receive care coordination to understand what it is that they need. I can't decide that. I mean, I know what's been researched, but I need more information.
So then the pool of people that you pull in to receive this information from are current patients that are in the category of your research, families that are in that area, or how do you pull?
Oh boy, Haley can help me out with this because she's done that. So let's say we're going to do a research study on cerebral palsy. So we want a diverse group of folks because there's different types of cerebral palsy, men, women, young, old. And so these folks actually help us decide, what are we going to research? What are we going to measure? How are we going to get folks that are coming to Gillette to want to participate in our research?
So I think the distinction between what Rhonda and I do, and what you may have seen as medical research, you may have participated in a research project at some point, been the person being studied, right? This is different, that we are asking patients and families to partner with us on the design of the project. If we're studying people with CP, we want people with CP on the project to help design it. And that goes with anything that we're studying. But there's a really important distinction between a partner on the project design and a participant in the study itself. Very distinctly different roles.
It was interesting. I was just at the ER at Children's in Minneapolis with Julian a couple of weeks ago. I won't go into the details of why, but the doctor came in and sat down and she looked at me and she said, okay, so I can tell you from a medical perspective what I think is going on, but why don't you tell me what you think is going on as a parent? Because I think you as a mother really get what's going on. And I was able to articulate to her, and that changed the outcome of our plan for treatment. And so I'm guessing that's not necessarily total family engagement because it's not a research study, but there's a little bit of a crossover, I'm guessing, right? Because we know what's going on with our kids so well.
And that is family engagement at that clinician parent level. Yes, yes.
Great. Okay.
Yep. So it's basically taking that level of engagement and then applying it to research. Or like at Gillette, when we're developing a new program or a new type of service, building a new inpatient unit, talk to families first to see what would be useful to have. How should we design this?
Well, feel free to call me. I was inpatient with Julian for a long time. I have lots of ideas.
So the question that I have, Haley, you brought it up. We're going to talk about a project, a research project that you're building out. So you're building out the scope of work. What kind of patients are you going to look at? What are you trying to achieve as the end goal from a research team? So the research team says, I think I want to go about this project in this way. How are you gaining the families to get this perspective? Because there are outliers like HIPAA and all these rules. And so tell us about how can someone who maybe is listening wants to understand, how do I get involved from the project level versus the clinical research base versus the clinical trials or whatever? So walk us through that a little bit more.
That is a really good question. That's why we hired Haley. Her primary role is to be that liaison. So myself as a researcher, I will send Haley a request and say, I need 5 lived experience partners that have experience with this particular condition. Then Haley has been compiling folks that she meets, but also
I have a really big list. It's my job to network, get to know as many people as I can with as many different conditions as I can, and get them to get excited about medical research.
So Gillette Children's has a webpage, gillettechildrens.org. And there's a family engagement and research page. So folks can say, give me a call. I think I might be interested in this, just their name and telephone number.
I would love to be involved in something like that. So you would go to the website and you would say, okay, these are the areas. Oh, I could fit into this one. And then you would reach out.
That's actually an interesting point, because you don't know the areas that are being studied yet, because that comes from the clinical scientists. The website basically just invites people to raise their hand and say, I'm interested in this program, tell me more. And then I have an hour-long conversation about what it is and what they could do.
What kind of time commitment goes into being involved in one of your studies?
Oh, that's a good question. It depends on what we're going to ask folks to do, but in general, usually a meeting a month, an hour and a half meeting, some reading ahead of the meeting, half hour to an hour, maybe some work after the meeting.
We ask you to do some online training. There's a lot of interfacing with me. We have you sign a contract. There is a process to it.
Yes.
And there is definitely some training, because I was brand new to medical research. There are a lot of terms that are new to you. They use a lot of acronyms. We have to make sure that we set people up for success too. There's a lot of pre-work that happens before you're ready to actually be involved on a project itself.
Thank you. Yep. And that is so important.
So then let me understand then, as a parent or a caregiver who would possibly be interested in this, what kind of benefits, and I know it's a weird way to ask the question, but what does the family get out of being a part of this research? Or what usually draws the parent to say, I want to be involved in this research?
Again, another really good question. So whenever I've met with families doing research studies, we want to do that because we want to make things better for the next family that comes along. And the lived experience partners, that's a term we use for our partners because it's that expertise that the research team does not have. Our lived experience partners bring that expertise to the research team, and we do pay people. It's not a lot, but we do feel very strongly that this is work that has to be compensated. You should not be considered volunteers. But we also do offer people the possibility of not accepting compensation because there are situations where compensation can mess up your benefits.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're cognizant of that.
I think the parents that really enjoy this kind of work are people who enjoy the brain work. I think there are people who have maybe read through some of these medical studies, maybe don't understand them completely, want to learn more. They're curious people. But I also think they're people that are not in survival mode anymore. Like if you think of that like sort of caregiver continuum with survival mode, like you're not in burnout anymore. You're kind of reaching that advocacy. You're ready to go out in the world and figure out how can I take what I've learned these last how many years and all this experience I've had raising my kid or living with this condition myself. How can I give back? Or how can I give this knowledge to someone else to give value to the greater population? So it's not necessarily about me. I think that's a really strong distinction. If you go into it saying, how's it going to help me? You're going to be disappointed. The one way, though, I think that it can be really helpful is that you network with people, the people that have been brought into my life and the resources and camaraderie and support that I have felt in this community of lived experience partners. It's like the community that I have with you two, but it's just blown up exponentially.
The other question is, you have many patients at Gillette, and I think it's the age up to 22. So you might even have more firsthand lived experience where parents are adjacent, right? We're not the one with the medical complexity. So you probably also want patients at times that can speak up. I know there's probably some kind of an age cutoff that you want to make sure that they have their own voice. So I'm sure it's really awesome to hear someone who is living with it actually give that firsthand experience outside of just being a parent caregiver. And it allows them to be driving the bus on research that may better help them in the long run.
Rhonda, can you share an example of a study that you're involved in?
So when your kids hit 18, 21, 22, eventually they're going to have to move to an adult care system, an adult ED, an adult hospital, adult primary care, potentially adult specialties. Gillette does do some adult care, but it's not the breadth of pediatric care. And the hospital can only have people up to a certain age. So from a lived experience perspective, we have 2 parents and a young adult who are part of our healthcare transition planning team. So it doesn't matter what we develop, what we do it in partnership. There's clinicians as part of that group. There's researchers. There's our lived experience partners. And honestly, it's our lived experience partners that have either said, oh, that's a really good idea, when clinicians were like, oh, I don't think we should do that, or kind of put a stop to something. We sometimes overthink things, and they're like, that's really not going to help anybody. Just take a step back. So they really keep us grounded in reality. For instance, we developed some educational materials around what can you expect with this movement to adult care. Information around supported decision making, access to the patient portal that changes when you turn 18. If your child would need full guardianship, what does that mean? Lists of adult providers, questions to ask when you go to the adult providers.
And then how do we retain this information from what you have put forth and presented? Is it in the form of brochures? Is it
yes,
literature
yes.
that's sent to us? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything that we're creating now goes on our external website and our internal website. So it's available for patients and families and for clinicians.
Okay. Wonderful. So are you also teaching a FER class? Do I understand?
I did teach one in the fall. Yes. And it was really fun. It was a virtual class with university in Canada. They wanted a US based person because all the students were US based. And Canada healthcare is different enough from the US that what you would do in Canada wouldn't work in the US.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So that training that Rhonda was a leader of was a training that I took when I first started in this role. I was at a 10-week course with a little, what do they call it? A micro credential. But you get a feel for what it's like to work with other researchers and clinicians and other lived experience partners.
So how many of these research projects are going on approximately at Gillette ballpark in a given year? And I know you guys just got the huge grant and built that new wing. So I'm sure you have more projects coming in the pipeline. How is that going?
Just in general research projects, probably 40 to 50.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. That's great.
I would say of that 40 to 50 that are pretty active right now, I mean, there's probably 200 that are still ongoing, right? But with the 40 to 50 active projects, maybe 13, 14 of them are engaging with lived experience partners. And on some projects, it doesn't necessarily make sense either, right? It depends on what's being studied.
Right. Got it.
Oh, so a good example of how lived experience partners can influence a project. The researcher at the VA developed a wheelchair that the wheelchair went from sitting to standing so that you didn't need two pieces of equipment, but it was designed for vets, so adults. We have a new researcher at Gillette who's a biomedical engineer. And she learned about this and thought, wow, wouldn't that be slick if we could do that for kids? She worked with Haley, and I'm not sure how many parents and kids that they talked to understand what is it about this wheelchair. First, would it be useful? What would you like to see? They used all that input and they wrote a grant to the Small Business Administration to get seed money to build these wheelchairs, to test them out. And it was awarded.
Oh, that's exciting.
Which is just so exciting because the lived experience partners were actually involved in writing the proposal for the funding, but also influencing what they were going to ask for.
And then you have the people on the other side going, well, that's possible, that's not possible, or that's a good idea, let's look into it. The collaboration on that and the true partnership, that's a testament to Alyssa's work, the principal investigator, scientist leading that project. Working with people who have lived experience has been a part of her throughout her whole training and program and postgraduate work. She's a really strong advocate for integrating people with lived experience into her work. And I think that you're seeing that play out and seeing the funding come in saying, yes, you're doing a great job. Do more.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you would think that with all of these studies happening, that things are moving in the right direction. But Rhonda, what is the future of FER, like especially with these unsettling times with funding, declining on many fronts. Is there any concern that this will impact Gillette and some of the studies that you're a part of?
It could.
Okay.
But I do have to say, our CEO is very committed. It's the mission of Gillette.
The mission of Gillette is in collaboration, patients and family. I mean, that's the first line.
It's the first time.
So here we are.
Yep. So I feel like we'll get through this somehow. I'm not sure how. Yeah.
I think it's a hard point to argue. I think everyone gets it. From funding sources to donors to families, I think everyone understands the value of doing the kind of work that we're doing. And I don't think there's going to be any stopping it unless truly catastrophic events occur.
Well, that's good news. Good news.
I think there's some longevity.
Yeah.
You think so, Rhonda?
Oh, definitely. And how could I say, there's not many health systems researchers that are doing this. So Gillette's at the forefront, but it's kind of like a ball rolling up a hill, and then we're still going uphill, but pretty soon we're going to have that momentum to really push things along.
Haley, you started off the conversation like that was one company I was always wanting to work at was Gillette. And it started out with you having Felix, and Felix is so complex care. And I think you were in it and you were a client. You were the consumer of their product. Their product is amazing. And then to add the cherry on top of the sundae was that they do research. And so it's not just a hospital that solves what's happening right in front of them, but forward thinking and forward looking. And to have that mission and value truly as your first line and that everybody believes in it is something that is amazing that you don't get. And people are drawing back on certain things right now, and they're rejiggering how they run their companies. And I think being in the science field, grants come and go. So you're sort of used to some of this discussion of like hard times, right? So if you got the grant funding, you're working as fast as you can to make sure it gets done correctly. And I think that's the value that Gillette and this family engagement research project is doing, is making sure that we as the families or even the children that have these conditions are able to have a voice at the table. And I think that's why we wanted to do Rarely Familiar. We wanted a voice at the table, share our knowledge, and make sure if families want to get involved, they can get involved. And that's what we really wanted to get through. So thank you so much, Rhonda, because it is nice to learn. And Haley, it's nice to have you on that because you love this position. And I think that's the thing, is parents know that they have you to go to be like, I want to get involved and here's how I want to get involved. I think it's a dream come true. It was kismet that we all met.
Well, thank you, Rhonda, for all the work you're doing for kids like ours.
It's been really nice talking with everybody.
Well, thanks for everything. Thanks for being my mentor, my friend, my guiding light through all of this work. I'm truly honored to have you as my guide. So thank you, Rhonda, for sharing your time, your expertise, your thoughts on family engagement, and for bringing this important work to Gillette. It was just a great conversation. We know how impactful this work really is. I think you can hear the passion in our voices. So please get involved. We'll put all the resources in the show notes.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you.
If you liked today's topic or have comments, questions, or thoughts on what else you would like us to cover, please visit rarelyfamiliar.com or connect with us on all the social channels. Resources will be listed in our show notes, and we'll be back next time with another discussion around living life successfully with rare medical complexities. Thanks for joining us on the journey.